Yvonne, it's a real pleasure to have you and welcome you in person. We've already been chatting up until now, and I know that there's so many insights that you can share, and I'm glad that we have this more informal and intimate setting where we can exchange the learnings. But for everyone who's tuning in and watching today, I'd like to just give a quick overview of Yvonne because she grew up in Cameroon and France. She studied engineering in Berlin or Germany, correct? Did her MBA in the UK and now finds herself in Switzerland already for a number of years. So I would like to know, can you give us a story behind this round the globe journey?
Well, it will be a very long story, by the way, but as you said,
let's do a 1 minute version.
I'm from African descent. I'm Cameroonian, so Central Africa. And I used to say that I am German by choice because I moved to Germany 3 decades ago. Yeah. And my husband and my children are German, so I feel very German. I'm an engineer and I also did a Master of Business Administration, as you said. And I would say for the last decade, roughly, I've been really focusing my professional career around, enabling technology-led transformation of organization of business models for customers of many, many sizes. I've led teams in 22 countries. I was counting actually this morning across Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And I think that drive really came from curiosity, probably. I've always loved trying new things and challenging myself. And it was a very enriching experience to work with so many cultures and across so many countries.
And it definitely comes through when we speak with each other. But I know that you were at Microsoft for about 13
years, yeah.
Right? And now you're general manager or country manager of Amazon Web Services in Switzerland. And I can really see that digital transformation, new technologies really seems to be at the heart of what you do. So explain to me how you see technology affecting change in your surroundings and in your personal life.
Well, it's everywhere, right? I mean, that's the fascinating thing actually about technology. I think 30, 40 years ago, it used to be something that was reserved for the few. Right now, everything we do, if we're using a mobile phone, if we're booking flights, if we're looking for accommodation, all these experiences have been enabled by technology, and the speed of that is actually accelerating. In the professional world, there's almost no jobs anymore that are not augmented by some kind of technology as well. So I do think that it is a very powerful tool to really allow for organizations and societies to continue to be productive and to be innovative, provided they use them in the right way. But what we tend to forget about digital transformation and technology is that at the end of the day, it is a tool, right? It's about what do people do about that. And that's a little bit also the task or the mandate for leadership to enable people so that they can use those tools to be inventive, to be creative, and to augment the ideas that they have and to create business values and to create business outcomes for their organization.
Is there a specific moment that is memorable that comes to mind where you really saw it being a force for good, either growing up or in your professional journey?
Yeah, it's many. I mean, especially in Africa, it's relatively easy to see. I mean, there are many examples. I was in Cameroon in August, and I did a few pitch contests for startups. And one of the startups that was pitching actually is working on a project to use drone to deliver medical supply in areas that are a little bit less available by road. As you know, the infrastructure is still very much in infancy in many countries. So just reaching certain places is super challenging. And it's just a small example of, how advanced technology in a place like that one can make a difference for people and even save lives, right? And it's a very common experience that we do across Africa, but also in the Western world today, right?
Yeah. And I really hear the excitement coming through when you talk about that.
True,
and I guess you're in the right role because now you're leading Amazon Web Services in Switzerland for a number of years. And in this role, you can bring about a lot of change. But from someone looking from the outside, when they look at you, they might think, okay, Yvonne is at the helm. She's a successful woman speaking at the Superwomen Summit. What do you say when you hear that or from someone looking at the outside?
Well, I don't know. I don't think I'm successful. And by the way, success is very personal, right? You ask 2 people, you get 3 definitions of what success is. I actually think that it's something that comes from the will to intrinsically achieve something or pursue something that is meaningful to oneself and eventually, ideally, will make a difference for others. I think it's success. For me, it's connected a lot with the notion of, I would say, freedom and opportunities, right? I feel successful because I have many opportunities to challenge myself, to learn new things, to grow as a person and as a professional. And I have more than other people, probably freedom to choose who do I go with. Where do I do these challenges? How do I approach them? And that's a real privilege. So I don't think I'm successful. I think I'm privileged to have choices, right? And to be given opportunities to make a difference for others.
There's a quote that you've brought up before that seems to resonate with you. And you said that success, well, you didn't say it, you quoted it. Success equals resilience divided by failure. I did a quick check. It's from Scott Galloway. His book.
Yes.
Just describe to me, why does this specific formula stick with you?
Yeah, for many reasons, actually. It's from a very good book of Galloway, by the way, that's called The Formula of Happiness. And the reason why it's relevant is that we tend to look at success when we look at the output, right? But we don't talk about the journey to getting there. And that journey really is sometimes a series of failure. It's very much about, what's your ability to stand up after being punched in the face, and to brush up and to try again, to try smarter and to try maybe better. That's, in the end, what defines success. But when we look at the output without seeing the journey, then we forget that failure or the sense of failure is a very important part of that. And in the end, it's really about how resilient are you? How often do you stand up again? How much grit do you bring into that journey to realize your dreams or your conviction? So
in this winding journey of yours, where were those times where you really felt, okay, I stumbled and I had to pick myself up again?
It's like weekly, right?
Okay, something that happened just recently then.
Let me think about it. Yeah, I'm in the process now of planning for the year, actually. And I've made certain plans based on certain assumptions. Yeah. And obviously, when the organization looks at those assumptions, they are going to revise them, right? So right now, I feel that the plan that I've put in place and the way the organization looks at it is very different, right? So you go home and you feel like, okay, I've been defeated now. I need to adjust and rethink about it. But I think with the years, it's less stressful for me to be in that places. I think it's really an invitation to say, okay, maybe Yvonne, you didn't think big enough. Maybe you didn't think smart enough. You have to go and correct and do better, right? So I think that these little defeats, I wouldn't call them failure. I think very much these little defeats are really an invitation to do things differently, to do them better. And luckily in Amazon, that's something that we actually want people to do. We want to fail fast. We want to learn a lot and we want to try and experiment constantly. So it's very okay to have defeats along the way. Yeah.
What kind of a leadership style would you say you have adopted now to encourage this kind of environment where there is open feedback and people can say, look, I probably could have done something better?
Well, you have to role model that as a leader. That's super important. I think it's very important to be vocally self-critical, right? To say, okay, here's something that we did well. That also is important. Specifically to women, it's important because we don't say enough the things that we do well, but also to be self-critical about, okay, this didn't go that well, and these are the things that I'm learning from that. So role modeling, I think, is very important. The other key part of having a culture that embraces failure is trust. You need to build trust in your team so that people feel comfortable and safe enough to fail and to be transparent about their failures. And that trust has a lot to do also with authenticity that you have as a leader. Are you vulnerable? Are you authentic? Are you your true self at work so that people feel that they can connect to you? So I would say really it's about defining principles that encourage people to experiment and to try things. It's about role modeling this willingness to learn, to fail and to learn from those failures. And also really working super hard on own authenticity and credibility to create an environment of trust that other people feel they can be vulnerable as well.
Since we do have this environment of trust and being open, can you actually share a time where you had to really check yourself and say, look, Yvonne, I didn't handle that situation as well as a leader, and I want to improve that next time?
Absolutely. I mean, there are many. My struggle is rather to pick one. I can think spontaneously of an experience where I hired a leader that was not the right person for the role. And unfortunately, I think I did over-index on my willingness to help that person be successful, right? And very quickly, my instinct told me that it was the wrong decision. But I really wanted to lean into that, to help, to give him the best chance I could give him and work on that for several months. Looking back, it wasn't the right thing because I think the colleague was really fighting. He was in a very tough place, trying to live up to expectation of a role that he could not reach. The business was impacted, obviously. The business and the customers were impacted. And I think I've also used a lot of resources that I could have used in supporting other parts of the organization by doing that. And that's, for me, also something that I personally failed because I did not trust my instinct. I think that's the first thing. So an error of judgment. And I did over-index on supporting someone in what turned out to be the wrong way. I could have rather supported that person find a better job, which I then did, but a little bit too late, right? And these are some of the lessons you learn, obviously, that, you know, as a leader, you need to be able to make some tough decisions, but you also need to trust your instinct. And as an engineer, I have an instinct, but I tend to want to bring data to support it, and it can take a little bit longer. So it's just one example, you know, of many decisions that we make. But I was saying that to my son yesterday. It's not really about making the right decisions. It's really about what you do with the decision you've made. I think this is a very key competency to really embrace what have been decided and do the best with that, right? And we spend a lot of time thinking about what's the right decision. Ultimately, if we have this ability to execute, to learn, to pivot very quickly as we're implementing, it's going to be successful ultimately, I believe.
And you have to be a role model every day. Right now, I understand you also have two people helping you out, and they're kind of watching your every move and trying to see what it is like to be to leader. And unfortunately, they couldn't join us today. But when you have that and you have to be a role model and living up to that, how do you go about it? Because, you know, do you have to say, okay, I have to rethink this situation very carefully, or with all eyes on you?
Not that much, actually. It was my assignment in Africa that actually made me realize that I am a role model. I didn't know I'm a role model, but just seeing what I represent to others was very humbling. And it can be a little bit crippling as well, because you feel like you just have to be perfect, but this is not what it's about. I actually believe that being a role model is very much about showing that you don't have to be perfect to still have an impact, to still make a difference, right? So we do have a shadowing program. It's not a program, it's an idea that we started a while ago, where some of the younger female leaders in the organization can go with me and on my appointment and be with me during the day. And the idea is really to inspire them, that they can see me stumbling, failing, being great, but also, you know, doing poor performance from time to time. And hopefully that also gives them the opportunity to be a little bit kinder to themselves, but to see the art of the possible as well, right? So that's why we do that. I think being a role model is not about perfection. It should be about showing an authentic self that can inspire others to fight their own gravity and to achieve their full potential.
Yeah, I really appreciate the honesty here. And because we don't have much time, I just want to throw to one last question. For everyone watching who might feel like they are in a rut, they're stuck at their job, or they're not moving forward. Can you just give a bit of quick advice to them?
Look, I think we all know those situations. I guess the first key advice really is to assess the situation without too many emotions, right? Because when we feel that we're trapped somewhere, it's very important to get feedback from others in that situation. The other thing that I tend to advise to do really is to reevaluate everything. Am I in the right job? Am I having fun? Am I making a difference? Am I learning? And the more of those questions we can answer with yes, the more I think is the invitation to lean in, right? To find ways to do things differently and to get out of the situation. At the same time, I must say that I also have been in places several times where, you know, I've made that decision too late, where I was in the wrong place, and it took me too long to accept that I was in the wrong place and move on. So I really think that having a clear assessment of the situation, talking to others, getting third-party feedback as well from people who look at it from the outside can help calm down the emotion and have a rational assessment. But as long as you're still learning, as long as you're still having an impact and making a difference, I think you deserve to continue to try, and you owe it to the others that depend on you to continue to try and to get off the situation. It's often not as bad as it feels, but if it is that bad, you have to move on.
Yvonne, so much that we've covered here today, and I know that our audience has really taken a thing or two away from this. So thank you so much for sharing all that insight.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.